At 16, you sit in a dark bedroom lit only by a screen, trading stolen digital codes for pocket money. You have no idea where this ends, and neither does anyone else. This is your life, as every level of a hacker, climbing from petty gift card fraud and stolen accounts to ransomware that pulls the FBI, Europol, and 3 governments straight toward your door. Level 1. The bedroom. It is small, almost harmless. A few stolen codes, a little money, and a thrill that feels like getting away with something clever while everyone else is asleep. You start in online forums where strangers swap stolen digital codes for almost nothing. You buy a batch cheap, resell them to gamers around the world, and quietly pocket the difference. What looks like a bored, harmless teenager is really reselling stolen value. It does not feel like crime. It feels like a game with a scoreboard made of real money, and you are winning against people you are certain you will never meet. The first time real money lands in your account, something inside you shifts. The risk feels tiny, and the reward feels enormous, so you tell yourself you will stop very soon. First, real month. $400 in resold stolen codes. By the end of your first real month, you have made more than a part-time job would pay in 3, and you spend most of it in a single reckless weekend. But you do not stop. You start noticing which sites are careless and which accounts are weak, and you begin collecting them the way other kids collect trading cards. The bedroom around you has not changed, but you have. The money is now the point, and the game has quietly become a habit you no longer question or even see. You find your first forum through a friend of a friend, a hidden marketplace where usernames vouch for usernames. To be trusted here, you learn you must first be useful. You learn to spot which codes still work by testing them in tiny amounts, discarding the dead ones and listing the live ones before the original owner ever notices. Reputation. Over 200 clean deals logged. Every trade builds a score beside your name, and that score is everything. A vendor with a long history of clean deals can charge more and get scammed less. The first time you are scammed yourself, you lose a week of profit to a seller who simply vanishes. You say nothing because there is no police to call here. Soon you stop buying single codes and start buying whole batches. Automating the resale with simple scripts so the pocket money trickles in even while you sleep through class. Level 2, account takeovers. The codes were only the doorway. Now you want the accounts themselves, along with the saved cards, the points, and the trust sitting quietly inside every one of them. You discover that millions of leaked passwords float freely online after old company data breaches. People reuse the same password everywhere, and that lazy habit slowly becomes your master key. You feed lists of stolen logins through tools that test them against shopping and streaming sites. A small fraction quietly work, and each one belongs to a real, unsuspecting person. Password reuse. 65% of people reuse passwords. The whole scheme works because of one human weakness. Most people reuse the same password across dozens of accounts, so a single old leak can quietly unlock a huge part of their life. You sell the working accounts in bulk to buyers you will never see, priced by how much value sits inside. A loaded account is worth far more than an empty one. Somewhere, a stranger wakes up locked out of everything they own online, points drained and cards charged. To you, they are just one more line in a long spreadsheet. What looks like a clever side hustle is really identity theft at scale. What you tell yourself is a clever little side hustle is, in plain legal terms, identity theft carried out against thousands of people at once, in bulk, from your bedroom. The number of accounts you control climbs into the thousands. You barely think of them as people anymore, only as inventory that refills every time another company gets breached. You gather what the forums call combo lists, giant text files pairing millions of emails with old passwords, harvested from breaches years before anyone thought to warn the owners. You run them through a checker that hammers a login page thousands of times a minute, hiding behind rented proxies so the site never sees the attack coming from one place. Hit rate. 0.1% of logins work. Only one login in 1,000 actually works, but when your list holds 10 million pairs, that tiny fraction still hands you thousands of live accounts overnight. Some accounts stop you with a code sent to a phone. You learn to filter those out, focusing only on the careless majority who never switched the protection on. You sort the working accounts by what lives inside, loyalty points, store credit, a saved address, and you learn that a frequent shopper is worth 10 times a casual one. Level 3. Carding. Accounts lead straight to what sits behind them. Real card numbers, real balances, and a hidden marketplace built entirely to buy and sell them like ordinary goods. You move on to dark web markets, reachable only through the Tor network, where stolen card data is sold in bundles, graded by balance and country like groceries stacked on a shelf. On these markets, a stranger's entire financial life is startlingly cheap. A single card costs less than lunch, and a complete stolen identity costs less than a night out. The stolen cards get used fast, before the real owners notice and call their banks. A card that has been reported goes cold and worthless within a matter of hours. The money starts arriving faster than you can spend it. You buy electronics with strangers' cards, resell them for clean cash, and watch your bedroom slowly fill with sealed boxes. Yearly take: $90,000 by age 19. By the time you are 19, your yearly take rivals a senior professional's salary. None of it is taxed, none of it is safe, and every dollar of it is traceable. You never once see a victim, but behind every number is a nurse, a retiree, a young family staring at charges they never made and cannot begin to explain. The distance is what makes it easy. A screen sits between you and everyone you hurt, and that thin sheet of glass lets you feel like none of it is real. What looks like the banks just absorb it is really real. Families pay for it. You have started telling yourself the banks simply eat the loss, that no real person is truly hurt. It is the story every carder tells, and it is not remotely true. Buying other people's stolen data has limits, and you can feel them. So you decide to stop paying for it and start harvesting it yourself, straight from strangers' machines. The good markets run on escrow, a middleman who holds the payment until the buyer confirms the card is live. Even thieves, you notice, build careful systems to avoid robbing each other. You test a fresh card with a tiny charity donation, a single dollar that tells you the card is live without waking the fraud alarms that a big purchase would instantly trip. You never ship the goods to yourself. You recruit drops, people who receive the packages at their own address and forward them on, a human buffer between you and the crime. What looks like layer upon layer of cover is really one slip undoes it all. Every session now runs through a VPN, then Tor, then a virtual machine you wipe each night. Your real face never touches the work, or so you let yourself believe. You turn hot cards into clean value fast, buying gift cards and gold that hold their worth, so that even if the card dies tomorrow, the money has already changed shape. Level 4. Malware and botnets. You want the source now, not the middleman. If the data comes from infected computers, then you decide you will control the computers themselves. You graduate to malware, small hidden programs called info stealers that quietly copy passwords, browser cookies, and card details from infected computers and send everything back to you. It spreads through fake downloads, cracked games, and email attachments dressed up as harmless invoices. Every careless click on the other side becomes another quiet stream of data flowing to you. Infected machines. 50,000 reporting to you. Before long, the number of machines quietly reporting to you climbs into the tens of thousands. Each one is somebody's laptop, humming away in a home or an office, completely unaware. The infected computers form a botnet, a silent army of machines you command from a single screen while their owners keep working, none of them ever sensing that anything is wrong. What looks like an ordinary home laptop is really a soldier in your army. An ordinary family laptop, the one used for homework and holiday photos, is now a soldier in your army. It looks normal on the desk and betrays its owner every day. You realize you do not even have to use the army yourself. You can rent it out by the hour to other criminals, and renting crime turns out to be more profitable than committing it. With every step, the technical distance grows, and the moral distance grows with it. You are no longer stealing from people. You are selling access to the tools that will. You have become infrastructure now, a quiet supplier the way a wholesaler serves a market, and a wholesaler always wants to move up into the product that pays the most. To slip past antivirus, you pay for crypting, a service that scrambles your malware until no scanner recognizes it. For a monthly fee, someone rescrambles it every time it gets detected. You hire traffers, people who lure victims to your infected files by poisoning search results and posting fake software cracks, so strangers download your stealer thinking they are getting something free. The stolen data pours in as logs, neat folders holding one victim's passwords, cookies, and card details. You bundle them and sell fresh logs by the thousand to other criminals. The botnet does more than steal. You point it at a website all at once, drowning it in traffic until it collapses, and rent that power out to anyone with a grudge. What looks like a live infection map is really real private lives. From a single control panel, you watch new victims blink online in real time, a live map of infections. To you, it is a dashboard. To them, it is their whole private life. Level 5. Ransomware. Stealing data quietly still makes decent money, but locking it away and demanding payment to give it back turns out to make far, far more. You move into ransomware, software that encrypts every file across a company network and freezes the whole business, holding its data hostage until someone finally pays for the key to unlock it. You do not even build it yourself. You rent a ready-made kit from a bigger criminal group and hand them a cut, a business model quietly known as ransomware as a service. You learn to price each ransom to exactly what a victim can bear. A small clinic pays a little, a law firm pays more, and a factory that cannot stop production pays a fortune. One of your victims turns out to be a hospital. Nurses fall back to pen and paper. Scans stop loading, and patient care slows to a crawl while you calmly wait for payment. This is the line where it stops being about money for anyone watching. Freezing a hospital can put real lives at risk, and the people who investigate this take it very personally. Single payout, $4.5 million paid in Bitcoin. When one large victim finally pays, the amount lands in your wallet in a single transfer. It is more money than most people earn in a lifetime, moved in a matter of minutes. What looks like a business negotiation is really extortion of the sick. To you, it might feel like a cold business negotiation. To a prosecutor, it is extortion, and extorting a hospital is the kind of case an investigator will chase for years. The payout changes you. The sums are no longer thousands but millions, and once you have seen a wire that large, going back to small stolen cards feels almost impossible. So you start thinking bigger. If small businesses pay tens of thousands, then the largest companies in the world could be persuaded to pay tens of millions instead. Most attacks begin with a single email, a fake invoice or delivery notice that one tired employee clicks. That one click hands you the first foothold inside the entire company. When the ransom note appears, a chat window opens with it. You sit on the other side, calmly negotiating with terrified executives as though you were haggling over the price of a car. A countdown timer ticks on their screen, doubling the price when it hits 0. The fear does your work for you, turning careful executives into panicked people desperate to just pay. Affiliate split, 80% yours per ransom. The kit is not yours, so the profit splits. The group that built the ransomware keeps a fifth of every payment, and you keep the rest for doing the actual break-in. Before they pay, victims demand proof you can undo it. So you unlock a few files for free, a strange courtesy that makes the whole extortion feel almost like customer service. Level 6. Big game hunting. Random victims are small game. Now you hunt deliberately, choosing large companies and breaking into the ones that can absorb a demand of millions without collapsing. You become an initial access broker, someone who quietly breaks into big corporate networks and then sells that foothold to the highest bidding ransomware crew instead of striking alone. You spend weeks living inside a network before you strike, mapping servers, and quietly finding the backups so that when the moment comes, the company cannot simply restore and walk away. Dwell time, 3 weeks hidden inside. By the time anyone notices something is wrong, you have often been inside for weeks. That silent stretch is called dwell time, and it is the difference between a scare and a catastrophe. You steal the data first and then encrypt it. So even a company with good backups faces a second threat. Pay up or watch every private file get published to the world. You are no longer a teenager in a bedroom. You run a small operation now with affiliates, negotiators, and launderers, an entire business built quietly on top of other people's ruin. What looks like a faceless online crew is really an organized crime ring. What began as one bored kid online has become something the law has a very specific name for. Not a lone hacker, but an organized criminal enterprise with roles and payroll. You almost never touch a keyboard for the actual attacks anymore. You recruit, you coordinate, and you take a cut, exactly like the head of any other business empire. But growing this big leaves a wider trail. More people know your handle, more victims file reports, and every affiliate you trust is one arrest away from becoming a witness. You shop for a way in the way others shop for shoes. A working remote login to a Fortune 500 network sells for a few $1,000s, and you buy several at once. Once inside, you move sideways from machine to machine, hunting the master account that controls the whole network. Seize that, and every computer in the building answers only to you. Your first real move is quiet sabotage. You find the backups and delete them one by one so that when you finally strike, restoring from a clean copy is no longer an option. What looks like you cannot open your files is really the world reads them all. You run a public leak site now, a dark web page where you post the names of victims who refuse to pay. Shame becomes another lever right beside the locked files. You choose targets like an analyst, reading annual reports to find companies rich enough to pay, yet fragile enough to panic. The perfect victim is wealthy, insured, and terrified of headlines. Level 7, the laundering. Making the money was one problem. Keeping it, cleaning it, and turning it into a life you can actually spend turns out to be a far harder one. The ransoms arrive in cryptocurrency, recorded forever on a public ledger the whole world can read, so you push the coins through mixers built to blur exactly where the money came from. Laundering cut. 20% loss to cleaning. Cleaning dirty crypto is not free. Every mixer, every hop, and every service takes a slice, so a large share of your fortune simply evaporates as the cost of hiding it. You hire money mules, ordinary people who move funds through their own bank accounts for a small fee, many of them never fully understanding they have become part of a serious crime. The clean money finally buys the life you imagined. A nicer apartment, a fast car, watches, and trips, and for the first time, your hidden world spills into your real one. But every mixer, every wallet, and every transfer leaves a faint permanent trace. Blockchain analysts and the FBI are endlessly patient, and the ledger you rely on never once forgets. What looks like untraceable digital cash is really a permanent public record. The very thing you trusted to hide you is the thing that traps you. Cash disappears, but a public blockchain is a permanent record that patient investigators can slowly walk backward. You spend more and more of your life looking over your shoulder. The money is real, the apartment is real, but so is the quiet certainty that all of it is borrowed time. You swap the coins between a dozen different currencies, hopping from one to the next so fast that following the money means following it across a dozen separate ledgers at once. You cash out through exchanges in countries that barely check who their customers are, handing over forged documents that no one on the other end has any real reason to question. For the largest sums, you use private brokers who trade crypto for cash in person, no questions asked, taking a heavy fee to make millions quietly step off the ledger entirely. Time to clean, 6 months per large payout. Laundering is slow by design. Moving a single large ransom safely can take months of careful hops, and every extra day is one more day for investigators to catch up. The final step turns numbers into things. You buy property and luxury goods through shell companies, so that on paper, a criminal fortune looks like the tidy holdings of a quiet investor. Level 8. Crossing the line. Then one job reaches further than you ever meant it to, striking something that keeps a city running and dragging in powers you cannot buy off or outrun. One of your affiliates locks up a company that moves fuel or power for an entire region. Overnight, your quiet crime becomes a national emergency splashed across every news channel. Lines form at gas stations, prices spike, and politicians demand answers on live television. You did it purely for money, but the whole world now sees a deliberate attack. In a single move, you have gone from a name on a fraud report to a target for the most powerful agencies on Earth, and now they are all hunting you at once. A ransomware attack on critical infrastructure changes everything. Governments that will happily ignore ordinary fraud will move mountains the moment the lights, the water, or the fuel are threatened. Bounty on you. $10 million for information. They no longer just want to arrest you, they want to make an example of you. A government publicly offers a fortune to anyone who can help put a name to your handle. For the first time, the fear becomes physical. This is no longer a game with a money scoreboard. It is a hunt, and you have quietly moved to the top of the list. Within days, your handle appears on a government sanctions list. Overnight, it becomes a crime for anyone, anywhere, to send you money, quietly strangling the payments your whole operation runs on. The sanctions poison your business from the inside. Victims who might have paid now cannot, because wiring a ransom to a sanctioned name is itself a crime their own lawyers forbid. The case leaves the fraud desks and lands with the people who guard national security. To them, you are no longer a thief, but a threat to the country itself. Leaders raise your attack in meetings between nations, naming ransomware a shared enemy. Countries that agree on almost nothing else quietly agree that you, specifically, must be found and stopped. What looks like a rational criminal businessman is really a national security threat. You wanted to be a businessman of crime, invisible and rational. Instead, a president has named your work terrorism, and that single word rewrites every rule of the game against you. Level 9. The hunt. You feel it before you ever see it. Market contacts go quiet, an affiliate simply vanishes, and slowly you realize that someone has finally started hunting you back. Investigators rarely break the encryption itself. Instead, they wait for one small mistake, a reused username, a login without protection, or a single wallet quietly tied to your real name. They infiltrate the forums you have trusted for years, running undercover accounts right beside you and quietly seizing the very servers your whole operation depends on to keep running. What looks like an anonymous online legend is really a name on a warrant. For years, you were an anonymous legend, a handle whispered about with respect in the darkest corners of the internet. Now that same handle has quietly become a name on a sealed warrant. One by one, your affiliates are arrested in other countries. Each of them is questioned, and each of them can trade what they know about you in exchange for a lighter sentence. Coordinating against you. 3 countries sharing every file. The thing you always believed protected you, that your crimes crossed borders, is now the thing sinking you. Instead of confusing the police, it has simply multiplied the number chasing you. You stop sleeping properly. Every car parked outside, every knock, and every slow footstep in the hall becomes the raid you have spent years pretending would never actually arrive. You think about running, about vanishing to some country without extradition, but your whole life, your money, and your name are now tangled in a net that stretches across the globe. One of the servers you rent turns out to be bait. Investigators set it up to watch, and every command you send through it is quietly copied and studied on the other side. A specialist firm untangles your careful money trail, following the coins through every mixer and hop until the branching river narrows back down to a single wallet with your fingerprints on it. What looks like thousands of careful choices is really one careless day. Years ago, before you were careful, you signed up for one service using your real email. That single forgotten detail, buried under a decade of caution, is the thread they finally pull. Someone you trust is already talking. A trusted lieutenant arrested months ago in another country has been feeding your secrets to investigators in exchange for the promise of a shorter sentence. They know your face now in your routines. Unmarked cars trade places outside your building, patient watchers logging when you leave, when you return, and exactly when you will be home alone. Level 10. The fall. It does not come as a warning. It comes as a door breaking open across the room before your eyes are even fully open. At dawn, armed agents in tactical vests flood your apartment, seizing laptops, phones, and hard drives before your hands can reach a single power button to destroy the evidence. The devices you were sure were locked forever are quietly cloned in a lab. Years of chat logs, victim lists, and payments are laid out like a diary you unknowingly wrote against yourself. In a bare interview room, they already know the answer to every question they ask. They are not there to learn your story. They are simply watching you confirm it out loud. What looks like a ghost they never find is really a defendant in 3 countries. For years you were a ghost, a figure they would supposedly never find. Now you are something very ordinary and very real, a named defendant wanted in 3 separate countries. Now 3 governments openly argue over who gets to try you first. Each one wants the credit, each one has its own victims, and each one has a prison cell already waiting. Extradition hearings drag on for months while lawyers fight over borders and jurisdiction. You sit in a foreign jail, no longer the hunter, but simply cargo being fought over. When the charges are finally read aloud, they stack into decades. Computer fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering pile one on top of another until the total dwarfs your entire life so far. The sentence. 20 years in federal prison. The sentence, when it lands, is measured not in months, but in years. You will be well into middle age before you ever taste anything close to freedom again. The apartment, the watches, the cars, and the crypto are all seized. The money that once felt endless is gone, and what remains is a plain number printed on a prison uniform. You spend the long, quiet nights doing the math you never did before, adding up the lives you disrupted, and realizing not one of them ever knew or forgave your name. It began with stolen gift card codes in a teenage bedroom and ended in a cell 3 governments fought to fill. Every single level felt small until the very next one arrived. No single choice ever made you a criminal. It was 100 tiny steps, each one easy, each one quietly telling you that turning back could always safely wait until tomorrow. The people who catch cybercriminals are not magicians. They are patient, they cooperate across borders, and they quietly count on one simple truth, that almost everyone eventually slips just once. They walk you out past cameras, hands cuffed behind you, the hood that once hid you now gone. The whole world finally sees the ordinary face behind the legendary name. Your lawyer lays it out plainly: fight every charge and risk dying in prison, or plead guilty and trade your remaining secrets for a sentence you might actually one day outlive. One by one, the people you built this with take the stand against you. The affiliates, the launderers, the drops, each buying their own freedom with a piece of your story. In court, the victims finally get faces. The hospital administrator, the small business owner, the retiree, each standing to describe a harm you spent years reducing to a line in a spreadsheet. Restitution ordered. $50 million you must repay. The court orders you to repay far more than you ever kept. After the laundering fees and the spending, the number on the judgment is one you could never hope to pay. So when you hear that the truly smart ones never get caught, remember this story instead. The ledger is public, the world is small, and the internet quietly remembers everything you ever do.